Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go. Despite the limited progress of the Russian army on the front lines, I'm saying limited compared to beginning of 2022, then Russian army really took lots of the territories. Now Russian army has some of the tremendous and huge issues with their army men. The issue is so big that they're forced to send their wounded and disabled soldiers on those crunches on attack missions. I'm not joking guys, those soldiers are going for attacking missions. The guy commenting it says that. He is saying that the guy on the crutches is going for the military task. Боевое задание, БЗ. It means military task, so some of the mission. And you see he is not alone, so here's the other guy and this guy is sitting. Maybe also something happened to him. And guys, it's not the first evidence giving us this information that Russia is sending their disabled people to attack. And by the way, this guy also is disabled, he has some of the stick. The attitude of the second army in the world towards their own soldiers is absolutely crazy, and it shows us again that probably Putin will be forced to announce a new mobilization in the Russian army. Obviously, if they want to continue with their meat attacks, and I think that they will continue, unfortunately. And those soldiers, they complain that they don't have the adequate medical treatment, they're kept on the front lines. For what reason? Well, maybe Russia wants to send them again for attacks. They're not being evacuated behind the front lines for the normal medical treatment, and many of those, like most of those, require special surgeries. But they have just been provided with some of the bandages. Russia has not just the issue with their army men, but also with the vehicles, for example, to evacuate their soldiers. Yeah, this is how they evacuate their wounded personnel. They're happy, but they use this toy, really toy, to evacuate this guy, which makes them kind of the vulnerable target for the Ukrainian drones because they're very slow and easy to spot. At least for Ukrainian army, then our guys are not being encircled or something. You always have the armored vehicle, MRAP. The worst case, I think, is the pickup truck because it doesn't have the armor, but our guys still much more quicker on pickup compared to this. But here definitely the second army in the world with their nanotechnologies. And it's not the only strange Russian transport which they use to move their forces around the front line. So here you can see the tractor, blue tractor, which tows the trailer with the Russian soldiers. Well, probably the only advantage of this transport is the off-road capability of the tractor. But in general, they have no armor, it's very slow vehicle, it is big, so very tasty target for Ukrainian FPV drones. But Russians are basically out of the solution, they have to use civilian vehicles on the front lines and even tractors sometimes. So if you see the video, then Ukrainian drone hits a civilian vehicle, it's not necessary, then there are civilians on board. The Ukrainian surveillance drones spot if the Russian infantry boards the special vehicle or not. But unfortunately guys, it's the war, so there could be some of the mistakes, so civilians also could be hurt. This video is interesting, I'm gonna show you some of the screenshots of it. So there is the vehicle and here is the drone. Which drone? Probably a Russian one, because the vehicle there, well, I think it's Ukrainian or maybe Russians because they use civilian cars, but usually ordinary soldiers do not move on those kind of defensive vehicles in the Russian army. I think it's Toyota Land Cruiser and soldiers were in a process to move civilians out. I don't know whether you can see with this resolution, but soldier takes out maybe some of the child even from the vehicle and tries to secure civilian from the drone strike, and luckily drone turned off from the vehicle. So it happens, there could be good things happening from both of the sides. Well, maybe it's the Ukrainian drones because Russians changed the menu to Russian and Ukrainians may fly like that, it's not the problem. So it's really hard to tell of who's who in this video, but the good thing that the drone operator, Russian or Ukrainian one, turned away from civilian, and by doing so the drone operator probably also lost the drone because you can see low battery, so the chance for it to return back is also low.
Нихуя себе. Нихуя, вот он, над головой, ёбаный в рот. Смотри, увидел?
definitely looks like the long-range drone Luty of the Ukrainian armed forces. This evening Ukraine hit the Russian command post in Volnovakha, it's the occupied territory. Also Smolensk aviation factory was hit, there Russia produces their Sukhoi 25 attack airplanes. In Smolensk, the Russian air defense tried to shut down the very low-flying Ukrainian drones, but unfortunately for Russians, obviously, you can see the air defense missile flown and it hit some of the local residential building. What can I say? Shit happens. And the Russian oil base in Lysky also sustained more injuries. It's the second attack of Ukrainian army on this facility for the last 3 days. Here's the article or picture from Bild source. Well, I understand that Bild is hard to trust, but here they have kind of the logical outcome of Ukrainian strikes on Russia. They think that if those continue like that, Putin will be forced to slow down in Ukraine. Because every drone strike, even if the damage is minor, it stops the Russian facility for extensive period of time, for repairs and reorganize the infrastructure and logistics. But also Ukraine hits ammunition depots, command centers, and obviously lots of the Russian oil facilities, which are really hard to repair for Russia with the lack of the Western components. For the last month, Ukraine intensified those attacks dramatically. Well, I think that after all, Biden's administration applied some of the limit on Ukrainian long-range strikes. They did afraid that it could cause escalation, but then they were up to leave Ukraine received the green light for those missions. And it seems like that the new president and new administration is not yet willing to stop those strikes, so Ukraine will continue with that for extensive period of time. It is probably the only variant to cause Russia some of the concerns about their special military operation, if their own facilities, oil and military infrastructure would be damaged far behind the front line. And as you can see with those drones, Ukraine may reach regions far, far away from its borders. My friends, by the way, if you want to support the job that I do on YouTube, you may join my Patreon, which is right in the link in the video description below. Thank you so much for maintaining my motivation. My fellow Americans, congratulations, you have a new president. Yesterday it was kind of the interesting show, I might say. Lots of the cringe stuff happened, it's not the topic of the channel. However, in this video I'm gonna speak about Elon Musk, but also about Donald Trump and the perspective relative to Ukraine. Well, let's listen to Donald Trump's rhetorics, and he answered some of the questions relative to Ukraine.
Yeah, I would, but he's told me he wants to make a deal. I mean, he wants to make Zelensky wants to make a deal. I don't know if Putin does. He might not. I don't know. He should make a deal. I think he's destroying Russia by not making a deal. I think Russia's going to be in big trouble. You take a look at their economy. You take a look at the inflation in Russia. So I would hope. I got along with him great, and you know, I would hope he wants to make a deal.
So actually, guys, we have a good sign that Trump thinks that Zelensky is willing to make a deal. And definitely it's like that. Zelensky even said that, okay, we're not gonna go with a war towards Donbass and Crimea. We're not going to liberate those territories using our military force. No, let's make it in diplomatic way, which involves also security guarantees for Ukraine, maybe NATO membership as well. Well, Donald Trump is against Ukrainian NATO membership. It's understandable, but I wouldn't say that the previous White House administration was for Ukrainian NATO membership. If they were really for it, they would do more steps to support Ukraine on its way for membership, but it didn't happen. So Donald Trump already understands that the only person who might finish this war is in Kremlin. His name is Vladimir Putin. Now the question goes is whether Donald Trump is really capable to influence Putin, to cause him to stop this war. I personally think no. Nevertheless, Donald Trump might harm the Russian economy even more, applying stricter sanctions and pumping more oil in the United States. For example, one of the executive orders of Donald Trump was to order the pumping oil in Alaska plus many other resources there. Trump said that he wants to fill up the strategic oil reserves of the United States to maximum and pump even more to sell the oil abroad. If that happens, the oil price would go down dramatically, damaging Russian economy, and that's good for everyone because the fuel prices also will go down. You'll have cheaper gasoline and airline tickets. So two things I like from this new White House administration, that they want to pump oil and that they want to push the NATO countries to invest into their armies more. Two of the things that I do really support: to weaken Russia and to strengthen the military of NATO. And today journalists asked Donald Trump more about Putin and what he might do in case Putin wouldn't agree on Trump's peace plan. Let's listen.
Vladimir Putin doesn't come to the table to negotiate with you. Will you put additional sanctions on Russia?
Sounds likely.
And do you think that the war should be frozen currently along
The
the
war should have never started. If you had a competent president, which you didn't, the war wouldn't have happened. The war in Ukraine would have never happened if I were president. But that couldn't happen because the election was rigged. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, Trump hasn't ruled out applying more sanctions on Russia, which is good in our case. He cannot say for now openly on the second day of his term that, okay, I will apply strict sanctions on Russia. He used the diplomatic language, but it's understandable the idea of Donald Trump. He wants to push Russia with sanctions. And probably the main question for us, the military support of Ukraine, well, Ukraine will continue to receive everything according to the previous contracts. Yeah, definitely United States canceled some of the support, but we speak just about some of the international organizations like United Nations UNRWA, which is acting on Palestinian territories. It has nothing to do with Ukraine. So Ukraine will continue to receive all of the previously agreed military support. About the new one, well, there is the possibility that Donald Trump will support Ukraine even more, but it will not be like a gifted support. As exchange, Ukraine might, for example, pay with its own resources at the moment. Ukraine has uranium, lithium, some of the gold, so that could be interesting for Donald Trump in perspective. And Ukraine might pay after the war is over, so for now, for Ukraine it's critical to obtain the military support. We'll see how it goes, but for now the first steps and first statements that Zelensky, for example, is ready to negotiate, but Putin is not ready to negotiate, well, those are kind of encouraging. But why do I think that Donald Trump has no real influence on Vladimir Putin? Well, because of this guy. Putin is in a very close ties with China and Chinese leader, and China will support Russia no matter what, unfortunately. Even if the strictest sanctions applied on Russia, China will make Russian economy floating at some level, at the level at which Putin might support his army. It doesn't mean that China loves Russia a lot or something. No, China would gladly take Russian territories. But China's main ideological enemy is the free world, democratic world, so China wants to make us to live under some sort of the global dictatorship. And those leaders around like Orban, Fico, they're not pro-Russian, I would say they're more like pro-Chinese. Based on the Chinese rhetorics, they want Ukraine to be kind of the separate state, but not a democratic one and not under the United States influence. But also they don't like Russia to occupy Ukraine. But still for them, the occupation of Ukraine by Russia is better than Ukraine would stay, let's say, pro-Western oriented country. And for this reason, they send some of the equipment to the Russian Federation, including those China golf carts, and so on and so on. And they also trade with Russia a lot, supporting the Russian economy, plus some of the countries in the Southeast Asia, and not only, they continue to trade with Russia too. With the start of the war against Ukraine, Russia became weaker, it's obvious, but not as weak to stop this full-scale war, that there is the high chance for Russia to announce a new massive mobilization. By the way, Putin congratulated Donald Trump before Peskov said that they will not congratulate Donald Trump because the United States is not the friendly country for Russia, but after all, Putin decided to do it. Donald Trump, congratulations to you. We hope that we're gonna reach the peace, but peace for Russia is the capitulation of Ukraine. They want Ukraine not to exist or to exist under the Russian ruling. Alright, the news which might sound not really important, but actually they are. Donald Trump support OpenAI with a huge $500 billion. Company will not receive the funds right away. There will be several of the steps, but the first step is quite huge. $100 billion. And definitely the future goes for the artificial intelligence, whether we like it or not. But the good thing here that Donald Trump supported not Elon Musk's project, but OpenAI. And Elon Musk criticized OpenAI many of the times. Since OpenAI is the direct competitor for the XAI of Elon Musk, he criticized Altman many of the times in his tweets. But finally, it's the OpenAI which receives that tremendous sum of the funding, not Elon Musk, which I think tells a lot about true Donald Trump's support of this entrepreneur.
For making it happen. Thank you. heart goes out.
This weirdo, he will not stay in Trump's team. He is damn toxic. The most rich and the most unsecured person out there. And also he went crazy. He doesn't give of what is happening around him. I don't know whether it's the result of the brain defects caused by substances or he was just born like that, but definitely he's the threat for stability of the United States, and not only. My prediction that those who praise Elon Musk today will be soon one of his main haters. And about this stuff, well, how can I comment that? People say that it was a Rome salute, but the Rome salute has never existed. If you didn't know, there's no any sculpture, no any drawing showing that Romans did the same stuff as Elon Musk showed us yesterday. It is said that Romans did it from some of the novels which were presented to the Western audience. So we think that it's the Rome salute, but it's not. And those who say that, okay, it's normal, try to repeat it. Just go to your work, go outside to populated area, do this stuff if you think that it is normal, okay? If you do like this in Germany, Austria and Italy, you'll see the sky through this kind of the window. But for Elon Musk, it's okay. Just look how he's satisfied. Yeah, it's the beginning of the big shit show that we're gonna witness. You'll be not bored 100%. And now guys, to the military map update, we have some of the good news. Ukraine was able to push Russians back to Shevchenko, so Russians before advanced with this kind of the narrow attack, but Ukraine forced them to retreat. Awesome news, especially from this very important hotspot, so whoever is in control of this operation in Kurahove direction is a smart guy. Actually, there were two of the Ukrainian counterattacks happened recently, one towards Zelenivka and the other towards Shevchenko, and by doing so, Ukrainian army extends this pocket, minimizing the threat for its army in Dachne, while Ukrainian army will still withdraw from this area, but it will do it little by little, without any encirclement threat from what I can see already. So, smart move from the local commanders. The idea for Ukraine is to retreat little by little, causing Russian losses again and again for Russia to scroll with heavy losses. And there is also Ukrainian army movement in Dachne. There was the counterattack today, kind of the small one, but Ukraine still keeps, I would say, all of the settlement under control. Russia absolutely needs to take the settlement if they want to go and cut the very important road for Ukrainian supplies of Pokrovsk. But for now, Russia is not capable to take this small village, and from what I see, the pace of the Russian attack slowed down dramatically. As for Ukraine, the most difficult direction still remains Velika Novosilka. You can see how this pocket shrinks little by little every day. And sadly, there is the only way out for Ukraine to leave Velika Novosilka through the difficult terrain and water obstacles. So Ukraine have to burn all the vehicles, all of the equipment in Velika Novosilka, just not to let this stuff to be taken by Russians. And because of the terrain and obstacles, the retreatment could be slow, so Russians might hit Ukrainian forces with the drones, artillery more precisely. And again, I say that the command of this operation is not effective, it's not competent from Ukrainian side. But we have the information that Kyiv charges generals for failure to defend Kharkiv region during the Russian strike on 2024. I support that move. I think that generals should bear responsibility for what is happening on the front lines, and there is also information that more generals will face some, well, not the persecution at first, but at least some of the investigation of their actions. And I would personally like to see it relative to the General Solot of the Ukrainian army, who definitely did a really terrible stuff for Ukraine. By the way, we have more updates. The enemy also advanced in Velika Novosilka. Yes, I showed you. Also near Vozdvizhenka. Vozdvizhenka is located in this area. Let's go to update yesterday and today. They've took this part and the road, and they also moved in Sribna. So yesterday, today. So Russian movement actually comparably low to what it was before. Low and slow, I would say. The pace slowed down, maybe because Ukraine hit the part of the Russian infrastructure far behind the front lines. And the Russian army struggles with their manpower and vehicles. But Putin still thinks that he is winning, he's taking the ground, that's why Russia may pour more of their resources to this war. For now, their economy allows them to do it, so this year, unfortunately, the war will not be over. And Donald Trump, will not be able to stop it. Well, guys, at least it is my own prediction based on my experience reviewing this war. And now, my friends, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video by doing so. It helped me a lot. And as usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.